You can't be reliant on the data, whether it exists or doesn't exist, from history. So we found ways of synthesizing data. So taking data from really diverse sources, from local experts and knowledge to research institutes to the dusty tombs of many studies and theses that have gone on before, to really current surveys even and psychographics. And the ability to synthesize those into living models that react and respond and connect, and they're context aware and they learn in an environment, enables us to produce the data that we will never see, or that we won't see until those events that people are imagining and that we're simulating may or may not happen.
You know, you and your partners and your clients have really a fair bit of power to model outcomes, right? You can feed in data that is both representative, but probably also a bit idealized or a bit hypothetical, and then, model outcomes in these complex systems. Am I right? And is that kind of a primary use case?
Yeah. So it's really, I think, to be able to capture that or pursue that generational impact, or that future or forward-looking perspective in a way that hasn't been available. So when we're looking at historical data, or we're trapped by historical data, we only have the data that we've collected, or it exists, but it's surveillance data, so it's privacy protected, or it exists in different silos. It was biased when it was collected, or incomplete, or we'll never be able to collect that data, just because there's no way we can possibly monitor those types of things. So, we looked at that. Many people see that as a problem, and we looked at that as an opportunity. And so you have to take a completely different approach, because when you can't be reliant on the data, whether it exists or doesn't exist, from history. So we found ways of synthesizing data. So taking data from really diverse sources, from local experts and knowledge to research institutes to the dusty tombs of many studies and theses that have gone on before, to really current surveys even and psychographics. And the ability to synthesize those into living models that react and respond and connect, and they're context aware and they learn in an environment, enables us to produce the data that we will never see, or that we won't see until those events that people are imagining and that we're simulating may or may not happen. So that's, it is a different world. It's a different way of thinking, but it's very enabling. And people get very excited about it once they dip their toe in, because it's quite liberating from where we exist today, which is we just have historical data, and we're as good
Sure.
as that historical data is, which isn't very.
You can't, yeah. I mean, you're enabling people to say what if, right? And then understand incredible outcomes. So I'd love to make this real. Can you share a little bit about, one or two projects maybe that you're working on right now, or you've worked recently, to make this real for the audience?
Sure. So I'll share a project that is kind of got its own legs in here in our province of Alberta. We started out just during COVID. We were asked to apply our technology, because we'd been applying it in other places in the world, but here at home. And it was to respond to the closure of international flights. So our airport shut down, like many others, and yet there was an importance in securing a spot when the flights opened back up, to be able to offer just as many, if not more, direct international flights. And that required a very short time frame to raise a significant number of millions of dollars to purchase the rights to those flights, before there was any understanding that the flights were going to open up again. So they asked us if we could model the impact of those flights versus no flights, no direct routes in our community. And so that involved synthesizing the community, the industries that relied on those flights, the people, how they spent money, how they lived, how they, the tourists, the consumers, the people who used our airport to get to others, the sporting events and festivals that relied on those direct flights for their bids and the economic impact that they have. Long-term impacts on sector choices or immigration choices too, depending on flights and routes. You name it, we needed to pull in the research around all of those things into the community and then show the community the story of with flights and without flights and into the future, short term, medium term, long term. And they use
That's
that
incredible.
to within 2 weeks raise the funds from the community during COVID, which was really quite extraordinary. So the power of the information that we delivered and the way we could show and model and represent economic impact took hold. And since then, we have produced their growth plan for the region. So 14 connected cities. We've dialed them forward to 2044, looked at food security, energy, waste, water, land consumption, hydrogen, project phasing, investment, blending, transportation, youth sense of belonging, post-secondary institute growth, and the list continues to grow. I maybe touched on about a quarter of the use cases. So they're all using the same model. And we have several ways that people in the community are accessing it, from strategic projects to purchasing data or licensing data from it, to we even offered a regional advanced lab where we get together collaboratively 4 times a year with really diverse leaders in the community. And we look at, subjects that range from energy burden to the last one we did was PM 2.5 and wildfire smoke and its impact on the health of the community and mitigation strategies going forward as we face some really unprecedented circumstances, and it doesn't look like they're going to change. So that's
okay,
one
this is
use case, one model, and
just
and
one,
the fun that we get to play. Yeah.